Good morning. Can I just say first how great it is to see everyone here today. I am here to introduce our keynote speaker, Mehreen. In 1967, 6 months before he was assassinated, Dr. King spoke to a class of junior high school students and asked them the challenging question, what is your life's blueprint? Like a building, do you have a proper, a solid, and a sound blueprint? Let us consider today's main speaker, Mehreen's blueprint. First, Dr. King stated that a person should maintain his or her own dignity and to always feel a sense of worth. Mehreen is the Director of Public Policy at Rosie's Place in Boston. Since 1974, Rosie's Place has provided meals, shelters, and answers for over 12,000 poor and homeless women and families each year. Mehreen's role includes advocating our legislature and government officials for policies that will support poor and homeless women and their families. Secondly, Martin Luther King Jr. stated that a person in her blueprint must be determined to achieve excellence in her fields of endeavor. To quote Dr. King, set out to do it well. Mehreen was born in Boston and raised next door in Linfield, where she graduated from Linfield High School. Mehreen has degrees from Tufts University, Washington College of Law, and American University. Our speaker has more than 10 years of experience in public policy. She previously held positions at Tufts Health Plan, Healthcare for All, and Massachusetts State Legislature. Mehreen is a member of the Boston Bar Association, the South Asian Bar Association of Greater Boston, and the New England Muslim Bar Association, and the Pakistani Association of Greater Boston. I guess she has set out to do it well. A third piece of the blueprint Dr. King described is to be prepared to face the doors that are open to you, including those that were not open to your mothers and fathers. Like many residents in our town of Wakefield, Mehreen is the first-generation child in her family. She has gone to schools of higher education, been able to open the doors that allowed her to share her gifts with her community, and to seek out opportunities that she never imagined would happen to her. However, not all doors have been opened to her family, especially in these unstable times where our country lacks unity, or where unity can be elusive. How do we prepare for this? Let us be inspired by Wakefield's own Mehreen Butt's Blueprint for Life and listen to her words.
Hello, can you all hear me? Thank you all for coming today, and Pina, thank you so much for that kind introduction. In particular, thank you Wakefield Human Rights Commission and the Wakefield Public Schools for organizing this event, and thank you for inviting me to speak. As Pina mentioned, I'm an attorney, so as such, full disclaimer, everything I say are my thoughts. They're not the thoughts of my employer, they're not the thoughts of the commission, they're not the thoughts of my family, they are all mine. The Human Rights Commission asked me to speak today and talk about diversity and unity. These aren't easy topics to talk about, especially in this time. As Rep. Broder and Senator Lewis can tell you, I spend my professional days talking about easier topics. Those include poverty, income inequality, housing, healthcare, equal pay. All those topics are easier to talk about than diversity. So I struggled with agreeing to do this talk. I don't have the solutions. I don't know what the solutions are. But then I spoke to some friends and realized that if we don't talk about these difficult topics, or only leave the talking to those who claim to know the solutions, then progress can't happen. So I agreed, and I said I would give a speech. And then I went on vacation to Cape Town, South Africa. um, which many said was kind of running away from writing the speech, but actually provided me with the talking points I needed for today. The challenges we face today are the same challenges that Americans have faced in the past, the same challenges that individuals have faced in other countries. Unfortunately, hatred in the forms of racism, xenophobia, sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia aren't anything new. What is new, how in a global world where we can connect so easily, how we as individuals address the hatred and create unity and embrace diversity. The importance of diversity has been proven. As Pina mentioned, I went to Tufts University. I was a biology major. So I studied everything from the Galapagos Islands to evolution to chromosomes in people. We need diversity for survival on a basic molecular level. And then after Tufts, I went down to law school in DC, and again, I saw the need for diversity in our laws and in our nation. Strong democracies have diversity, from having everyone be able to vote and having a chance to be at the decision-making table. We are stronger when we have diverse stories and backgrounds and ethnicities and races and religion as part of the legislative process. So how do we as residents, average people, embrace and promote that diversity? How do we create that unity? I'm going to talk about 3 things, easy things we can all do to work towards creating that unity. So first, the importance of art. All forms of art are crucial to learning and growing. So I'm going to encourage everyone to read, write, paint, dance, listen to music. Read something by someone who's different than you. Listen to music in a different language. Promote and embrace the arts. See public art. Cape Town had public art everywhere, murals and colorful buildings and painted streets and sidewalks. My favorite story while I was in Cape Town was exploring District 6, that there would be marches of people in the street dancing and singing and protesting against apartheid. There were too many people to arrest everyone, even though protesting wasn't a arrestable offense. So when they added music, it turned into art, and police and politicians were at a loss what to do. So just like all those Wakefield students earlier today, reading poetry, reading speeches, singing, playing instruments, I'm encouraging everyone to go make art. Second, the importance of friending others. While in Cape Town, I walked around District 6, an area of Cape Town that was rich in diversity. And then in the 1960s, all non-whites were forcibly removed from their homes, and their homes were bulldozed. Interestingly, the places of worship weren't harmed. They weren't touched. They still stand today. So those parades that I just mentioned, or protest marches, started and ended at places of worship. Bishop Desmond Tutu's church and a mosque were both used as meeting points for these marches. People of all faiths gathered to protest together. Their common goal for social justice surpassed the differences in their religion. As many of you know, I identify as a Muslim. Some of you have heard that November was a tough month for me and my community. Hate speech and hate crimes increased. Local mosques that I attend got hate mail that threatened violence and genocide. 50% of Americans have a negative opinion towards Muslims. 30% believe Muslims should carry an ID. The sad thing is that 60% of Americans have never met a Muslim. Yet studies have shown that if an American meets just one Muslim, the negative rating decreases by 50%. So what does that mean? Well, it means that everyone here can say you've met a Muslim, so hi. And then it also means that knowledge isn't enough. We have to have relationships. So my second suggestion in this time, visit a place of worship that's different than yours, just to see, just to prove that there's actually more uniting us than dividing us. So when there's talk about registering Muslims and creating a Muslim database, you can say you went to a mosque and met Muslims. And hopefully you realize that a registry is unconstitutional, un-American, and not celebrating unity or diversity. Third, the most striking moment in my visit to Robbins Island, the prison where political prisoners were kept, was realizing that Nelson Mandela was locked up for 27 years. For almost a third of his life, he was isolated in a tiny jail cell. And most of the other established leaders were also locked up. Yet people, ordinary people, still protested. They still rebelled. It was the regular, unelected officials who made the difference. I like to think about that on days like today. We honor Martin Luther King, the only American who is not a president to have a national holiday. He's also the only non-president memorialized on the Mall in Washington, D.C. Why? Why is he the only non-president? Because he was not a political leader. He stood up for everyone's constitutional rights. It wasn't his job. He did it because it was the calling towards moral justice. So my third action step is to be active in protecting your constitutional rights. Be active in protecting the rights of your neighbors and your friends. I work in policy. I know we have to reach out to our elected officials. But more than that, we have to reach out to those that are different. We have to actively reach out to those who don't look or sound like us. This is probably the hardest thing, but stand up, speak out, acknowledge when something is said or proposed that imposes on any citizen's constitutional rights. So the silver lining of all these struggles that have always been here is the response from ordinary folks, the people who reach out and stood in solidarity, the folks who stand up to xenophobia and racism and hatred. So these are my 3 steps that I ask you all to commit to today. Experience some art by someone who doesn't look or sound like you, visit a different place of worship, and speak out when you see injustice. Rep. Roeder earlier mentioned Congressman John Lewis. He marched in Selma when he was 23. He's in his 80s now, and he's still practicing nonviolent social justice. Just last week, he said, we must never, ever give up the right to protest for what is right, what is good, and what is necessary. So that's where I'm going to end. Don't give up. Thank you.